The hardest thing about being a reseller is knowing which items to pick up and resell and which items to skip and leave behind at the thrift store. There are a ton of what sold videos out there on YouTube that are a great place to start learning. However, this will only get you so far. If you're looking to level up your reselling game, you have to learn how to spot good items on your own. There is only so much memorization you can do. Sure, you can sit down and memorize brands and what items sell, but that will only take you so far. That's why in today's video, I'm going to share 10 tips I use when I'm out sourcing to determine which items are actually worth reselling. Number 1, leisure and sport activities. People that participate in leisure activities and sporting activities typically have a higher disposable income than your average household. They are constantly looking to upgrade their gear and get the newest and latest best equipment that they can. A common mistake I'll see resellers do is only focusing in on the hard goods. Sure, we all know golf clubs can resell for a decent price, and snowboards can be flipped locally depending on your area. However, all of these activities require a certain dress code. Now, sometimes this dress code is actually required in the sense of like a winter jacket is needed to go skiing in the winter. However, sometimes it's just based on the way people dress to perform that certain activity. So golf is a perfect example. A lot of times people will wear certain brands and certain styles of clothing to go golfing in order to fit in with their community. One of my favorite ways to learn more about these kind of activities is by talking to people. One of the best ways to learn is to just go ask someone. That guy that you know who goes skiing, talk to him about what his favorite brands are. That golfer that you know, ask him what clubs are the hottest clubs right now and which polo shirt brand everyone is wearing. People that are into these activities love to talk about these activities, so asking some questions will lead you to having more knowledge than the average reseller. Another great way to learn more about these activities is by going to the store. From your local golf shop to Dick's Sporting Goods. These are perfect places to go and shop and look and determine which items you should be looking for. So the next time you strike out at the thrift store and you can't find anything, instead of heading home, head to your local Dick's Sporting Goods and go walk around and check out all the different sporting equipments and all the different brands of clothing that that store carries and see what they're selling for and see which ones are being promoted the most and which ones are the most valuable and what things you're looking for on these items that are factors that are going to increase the sales price of the item. The next one is quality, and quality matters a lot. But it's a super easy way to determine which items are worth spending more time to look up and which items you should just pass over. For me personally, when I'm flipping through a clothing rack, I am using my eyes to visually look at tags. However, one of the things that I'm really doing is feeling the different fabrics. Anytime I feel like a performance or a higher end fabric, I'm going to stop, slow down, and look at that item a little bit harder than I would say something that feels a little bit cheaper. The same goes for hard goods. If you have a whole bunch of hard good items in front of you and you're not sure which ones to spend the time to look up, maybe you're a little overwhelmed. You just walked into the thrift store and you're like, there's so much stuff. Which ones do I look up? Which ones do I walk past? If you don't know brands, one of the better ways to figure out which ones are worth spending time on is just by feeling the weight. Pick up that hard good and see if it has some quality to it, if it has some weight to it, or if it feels cheap and plasticky and something that is disposable or something that might just get thrown away. Now, obviously, this isn't a perfect science because there's a lot of things that are made very poorly that are still worth a lot of money. And there's a lot of things that are made very well that aren't worth reselling. However, if you're overwhelmed and there's too much stuff and you can't determine where to start, one of the best ways to start eliminating things is just by touch and feel and weight and determining whether that is a quality item or not. The next one is needs. Needs is my absolute favorite because it sells fast because everyone needs it. Most resellers don't focus in on the actual needs of customers. They want to find the coolest item, the best item, the biggest item, the big bolo item, and they're walking past a ton of money sitting there on the shelves just because it's boring money. I'll often have friends and family ask me, what is the coolest item you found recently? And I always struggle with that question because, to be perfectly honest, I don't go after cool items. I don't search out rare items. What I search out is everyday items that people actually actually need. From work boots to ink cartridges, all of these resell for a great amount of money, and people will walk right past them because they're boring. They're everyday items. And if you know a little bit about, say, work boots, you can determine which ones are actually worth reselling and which ones are not. On a side note, one of the coolest items I ever actually found was a prison Sony CD Walkman. So it was a CD player Walkman that you would use with like headphones. However, it was completely clear. And on the back of it was an inmate name and number carved into it. I was actually able to go online and research that guy's name and inmate number and actually tie it to what crime he did and what years he served in prison. I thought it was a pretty cool item, and so don't buyers, because it sold very quick for a decent amount of money. These are actually a pretty big bolo. Anything from prisons, from TVs to CD players to radios, anything that's crystal clear like that and shows the inside of it might have come from a detention facility or a jail, and those items are actually worth reselling. So the next time you see one, run over and give it a look. If you're enjoying this video so far, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss any future content. The next one is accessories. Accessories is a great way to outsmart your competition. A lot of times you might show up at a thrift store, a yard sale, or an estate sale and see your competition walking away with that big bolo item. Your heart drops and you're aggravated because you missed out on it. Anything from a camera to a whole thing of video games. They may have grabbed it and already heading out and you missed out on it. However, one thing I like to do is focus in on the accessories for those kinds of items. If I see someone walking away with a nice camera, I'm thinking to myself, what kind of accessories might be at this house or might have gotten donated with it? So I'm going to go look at chargers. Sure, they don't sell for a ton, but there are actually some great Sony chargers for cameras that sell for a decent amount of money. Same with video games. You just saw that guy walk out with the Guitar Hero. Well, did he grab the dongle, or did the dongle get separated from the item and the dongle's sitting over there on the shelf? That dongle sometimes can actually sell for more money and faster than the guitar will itself. And that's one of the reasons I love focusing in on accessories, because it gives you that opportunity to go in with an open mind and continue to dig and look for items, even if you notice someone walking away with the big bolo. The next one is clothing on the larger end. I actually sell a decent amount of clothing. However, one thing that is a huge determining factor on how fast an item sells and how much money it's worth is the size of it. This matters for things from shoes to jackets to pants. When it comes to reselling, size definitely matters. However, a general rule that I like to use is the bigger the size, the better the item. So for me, when I find clothing or shoes in those higher sizes, I'm more likely to pick it up and it's more likely to sell faster for a little bit more money. Not only are we just typically bigger here in America, so the bigger sizes will sell more often, but the big and tall crowd is an underserved market inside retail stores. So that's a crowd that's already used to shopping online. Therefore, when you sell to them, they're very open to buying online and buying clothing online. The next one is seasonal items, but during the right time frame. Seasonal items can be a great hit or could be a huge miss, just depending on what time of year you pick them up. If you pick it up at the right time, it can give your sales a huge boost. However, if you pick it up at the wrong time, you may end up holding on to it for longer than you're expecting. And I factor this in when I'm looking for things to buy. So yes, I am more picky on what jackets I'm picking up during April. However, once September rolls around, I'm starting to pick up all the jackets that I know will sell, because come October, November, everyone's going to want a jacket, and jackets are going to be harder to find, say, at thrift stores or yard sales. So if I can pick them up in September and only have to hold them for a couple weeks, it's going to be a huge boost to my sales when that demand curve actually hits. The same goes for a lot of things, from sporting goods and baseball bats and golf clubs, all the way to Christmas decor and video games. There's a certain time of year that all of these items sell better than the rest of the time of the year. And if you can buy it just prior to that demand curve, you can cash in very quick and get the maximum profit out of those items. The next one is small, lightweight items. These are my absolute favorite. I love picking up smalls. Anything from clothing to video games to CDs to remote controls to small electronic items. If it's small, it's something I'm going to be looking at. They are easy to list, they're easy to store, they're easy to ship, and they just don't take up a lot of space or time. Large items come with a hassle factor. There's a hassle involved in moving that item around to photograph it. There's a hassle involved in storing that item. And then once you go to ship that item, it's going to cost more to ship the item, and you have to have a bigger box for that item. And even if you're getting your boxes for free, that box takes up more space inside your house while you're storing it. Where padded envelopes, you can store a ton of padded envelopes in the same space of a few boxes. So for me personally, anytime I can, I'm sourcing the smaller, lightweight items. They're easier to ship, easier to store, and easier to sell for me and my business. The next one is mid-priced brand new items. Now, I tend to stay away from high-end brand new items because it seems to attract a scammer crowd on the eBay platform. Think about your like Apple computers and expensive AirPods, anything that's brand new and sealed. I just tend to stay away. There's too much faking, there's too much scamming going on. I just don't want anything to do with it. But the mid-tier price point, that is a whole different category for me. That is something I'm always looking for. If I'm at a thrift store or yard sale and I'm not quite sure where to start, one of the things I'm looking for are brand new items. Typically, brand new items are going to be worth more money to resell than used items, but they're also a lot easier to resell. There's no testing involved, there's no cleaning involved, and the customer knows exactly what they're getting. You don't have to go in and describe all of the flaws. So the next time you're feeling overwhelmed and you're not quite sure where to look or what to start with, just take a quick look and see if you see anything with tags on it. See if you see anything that's sealed. See if you see anything that's brand new, and start your search from there. The next one is Made in the USA. Made in the USA is a great sign that I need to slow down and look at this item a little bit harder. While there is plenty of junk that's made in the USA, there's also some great items that are made in the USA that are worth a lot of money. Now, once again, this isn't an exact science, but if I see a tag or an engraving on an item that says Made in the USA, I am going to absolutely look that item up if I don't know what it is already. The reason being is these items are typically higher quality and typically sell for more money. Also, with clothing, if you see Made in the USA, it could also mean that this is a vintage piece of clothing. It's a good sign that it's an older piece of clothing because in today's age, there's not much clothing made in the USA anymore. So if you're seeing tags that say it, you might want to slow down and start looking and deciding whether that's actually some vintage clothing that you can resell. The next one is lifetime warranties. There are a bunch of brands out there that offer lifetime warranties, and these brands typically resell for a great amount of money. They are typically higher quality, so they're usually easier to find because you can feel the quality. Like I was talking about earlier, whether it's through feeling with your hands or feeling the weight of the item, these items are typically made better, and they're made better because the company doesn't want to get a bunch of returns in and have to repair and warranty these items, so they make them heavy duty. Now, me personally, I have a whole list of companies that have lifetime or extended warranties on their products because these are great items that you should know so that when you're out at the thrift store, you're looking for these brands. These items are almost always going to have a higher resale value than an item that doesn't have a lifetime warranty because people know that if it's broken, it's going to get taken care of, and the age isn't as important to the actual sales price of the item. Everything from clothing to sporting goods to tools, any of these items could have a lifetime warranty. You just have to learn which ones you're looking for. A good example of a clothing brand would be Patagonia. A good example of an outdoor gear brand would be Vortex Optics. Both of these offer lifetime warranties, and they'll repair these items or replace these items if they ever end up needing to be replaced. And both of these items sell for a good amount of money, even in used condition. So I highly recommend hopping online and starting your own list of brands that have lifetime warranties or extended warranties, and keeping your eye out for these bolos out in the wild. Remember, when it comes to reselling, it's not always about who can remember the most brands. It's actually just about who can spot the correct items to actually go and search for. If you enjoyed this video, I think you're gonna love this one, so go ahead and give it a click.